It's my great pleasure to welcome to pdWISE Larry Gifford. Larry hosts the podcast When Life Gives You Parkinsons, which details his journey with the disease as a guy in his mid-40s who's in mid-career with family and facing all the challenges and opportunities that can come with that. Larry was diagnosed with young-onset Parkinson's back in August of 2017, and his show was named Best Podcast by RTDNA West Region in 2020, and it's listed on the Best of 2018 playlist by Apple Podcasts. When he's not doing all of that, Larry also hosts the Michael J. Fox Foundation's Parkinson's podcast, as well as serving on the Foundation's Patient Council. More recently, he founded the Parkinson's advocacy group called Avengers, which we will talk about today. And he's an ambassador for the 2022 World Parkinson Congress, which will meet in Barcelona, Spain. Larry is also the National Director of Talk Radio for Chorus Entertainment in Canada. And so we're reversing roles today, and I am interviewing the expert on interviewing. So Larry, welcome to pdWISE. It's a thrill to have you. We look forward to talking with you today.
Alan, thank you. It's a great pleasure, and thanks for all the advocacy work that you do.
It's my pleasure, Larry. Let's start with sort of the beginning. For those who don't know, what is it like to live with Parkinson's disease?
It's kind of like if you've ever been to a amusement park and you've gone down like the gaming aisle and you do whack-a-mole. And you wake up every day and it feels like there's a different symptom that you're trying to figure out how to knock down. You learn to live in the moment because you cannot predict what you're going to be like at any given time. You can manage your meds so you kind of know when your ons and offs are going to be, but really it's about learning how to say no to things, learning how to not feel guilty that you are not able to do something that you've promised you're able to do. It can be a frustrating, exhausting, painful, both emotionally and physically, and it really challenges you to look internally at what your purpose is. Why did I get this disease? Why me? Why now? Why? Yeah. So for me, it continues to be a very internal journey, but one that affects everybody I touch in one way or the other. Whether it impacts my family because they've had to adjust around me, and sometimes we make plans that we have to cancel, or I can't do everything that all the dads can do. Yeah. I can't, I feel you have to work through that, and then work and friends, and like, so it's a full-time job managing Parkinson's.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on all of that. And, day to day, moment to moment is not predictable, right? As you're saying, you never quite know which mole is going to be bearing its head at the moment. So let's stay on that topic for a moment. What do you do in light of those challenges to, take care of yourself, to manage the many responsibilities you have, family-wise, professionally? One of the things I and many others, admire about you is you're as busy as you've ever been doing meaningful things, but presumably that gets more challenging over time for most people on this road. So how do you manage all of that?
Well, it's hard. I actually, for the WPC virtual Congress coming up, they had me speak on work-life balance, and I thought they were joking. But what I've come to realize is that balance is not something that you can buy at like Staples, pull it off the shelf and go, I'll have some work-life balance here. And it's not anything that anybody can give you. Your employer can't give you work-life balance. You have to make it. And it's not something that you attain and you stay there. It's fleeting. So you're looking for these moments of balance in your life. And sometimes it's about quality of time versus quantity of time. So you have to figure out what are the important things in your life. And so I was going through, I keep a lot of notes, and I have sort of a journal and stuff. And I go back and I look through it every now and again, because there's actually there's some wisdom in there if you look back on your life.
Yeah.
And in 2019, I wrote a journal entry called the things to change in my life, to simplify and to be more in the moment. And I realized I was not prioritizing the things that I thought were important. So up the top was me and my health, and that was the thing that was the bottom of the list. I was doing all these other things.
Yeah.
And so I've really had to prioritize. Okay, so I need to make sure that first and foremost, I'm healthy, and that I'm being taken care of and nourished, and then my family, and then my work, because that's important to support all of us, and then my advocacy. And so making that list, and then making sure that it's in balance. And there's, like, this month is April Awareness Month, so the Parkinson's Awareness Month, so it's skewed, but I know that. And then it's sort of going back and forth and making sure that you're saying no to things that you can't do in the moment, but maybe I can do it in 2 months, or maybe I can do something else down the line. And it was hard to say no to people, because I want to say yes. I'm a yes guy. But if you're going to be in balance, you actually have to say no as many times as you say yes.
Yeah. And learning sort of that discernment, I think, is really, really key. I mentioned at the outset, you're the national director of talk radio at Chorus. That's a demanding job, to say the least, and requires you to be on a lot of the time, I suspect. And, just for a moment, if I can reflect personally, when I was, not long after I was diagnosed and still really pretty private about it, I found your podcast, and you had a guest on, and I don't remember who she was, but she was a close colleague or coworker. And you were talking very frankly with her, and she with you, about sort of, your shared experience of work after your diagnosis. And I was really compelled by that. And I know, as you know, that many, folks, particularly young onset folks, really struggle with sort of the professional piece and how to manage that. Do you recall any of that conversation, and just sort of what the tenor of that was that might be helpful to recall?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to explore that too, because it's a scary area for a lot of people. I mean, when you get the diagnosis for Parkinson's, you're like, am I going to be able to work? Is my work going to want to continue to employ me? And do you want somebody running the national talk radio product who has a degenerative brain disease? It's not really something that you want to put on your LinkedIn profile.
Touche. Yeah.
So, but I've been very fortunate, and my boss's boss had cancer at an early age, and the company worked with him during his cancer treatments and whatnot. And he's very much an advocate now for bladder cancer and whatnot. So I felt very comfortable going to him and saying, listen, I got this issue that we're dealing with, and we think it's, I don't have an official diagnosis yet, but this is what's happening. And so I brought them in way early, and they've been so kind to me that I think that my experience is different than other people's. And I know other people have been fired from their jobs when they've become clear. And so you really have to, you don't owe it to your employer to tell them anything. You should, if you have questions, you should consult an employment lawyer. And I'm not an employment lawyer, but there are many out there that will be happy to give you that advice. There's great advice online. And it is, for me, it's been really interesting doing the podcast, and the company then distributing the podcast, and being a supporter of my advocacy and allowing me to do that on company time. And so they are not just allowing me to work, they are supporting me in this journey, which is terrific. And so everybody knows I have Parkinson's at the office. And so it's interesting to talk to them about how that impacts our relationships and how maybe perceptions. And Nikki was my co-host for a long time, and she and I would talk about that quite often. And she's like, if I didn't know, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Because, and I think that my inner trimmer is really noticeable, or like my lack of word recall is really noticeable, or I get embarrassed if I forget somebody's name. I can't recall it right away. But people are like, I wouldn't know you have Parkinson's unless you told me, or unless So oftentimes I'm on walking poles, and people are like, hey, what's going on? You okay? And that's how they would know. But I think we're very super conscious of what's happening to our bodies because we can feel every twitch.
Yeah.
Most people don't notice.
Yeah, and I think that probably is a tribute as well to you're not letting Parkinson's define you. It's part of your life, and has a great effect on a lot of things, as you said, but it's not all of who you are or what you bring to any community or relationship, or in this case, job. So I think that's great on all of those accounts. Let's stay with your podcast, When Life Gives You Parkinson's. I mentioned it was a great resource for me early on, and continues to be. I always look forward to what drops next. But tell us about how that came into being, and sort of what you do for folks who are not familiar, and
Sure.
The audiences you reach.
Yeah. So When Life Gives You Parkinson's was born out of sort of my coming out story. So I came out on World Parkinson's Awareness Day 2017, or 2018 rather. So the year after I was diagnosed. And I had been listening to the Michael J. Fox podcast, and Ray Dorsey was on there, and he said, if people with Parkinson's don't start sharing their stories, we'll never raise enough awareness to do enough research to get it to find a cure for this. So I thought, well, I'm a storyteller, and I've got access to all radio and TV stations, a huge web platform, and a podcast platform. I've been doing it for 30 years, and if I'm not going to tell my story, I can't expect anybody else to tell their story. So we're all just going to be stuck. So I came out, it had I announced on TV that I had Parkinson's as part of our Parkinson's awareness coverage, and radio and across the country. And then as part of that, we rolled out online like a 20-minute documentary of sort of what it's like to have Parkinson's. And people loved it, and they asked for more. And so that fall, we launched the podcast, and it's been growing ever since. We have about 3,000 subscribers. We're approaching 300,000 downloads over the course of 3 years, and each year seems to have a different theme. So the first year was all about sort of the diagnosis journey and understanding how Parkinson's might impact my life, and the second year was more about from becoming sort of a victim to becoming to owning the disease, and how you do that, and whether it's through humor or whether it's through exercise and fundraising or whatever. And then really this season has been about becoming a leader of advocacy. And so the advocacy is really sort of the through line of this season.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Keep doing it. I mean, I learn something every time I listen, and we would be poorer without your voice and those of your guests in the conversation. And you mentioned Ray Dorsey, fabulous human. Ray's a movement disorder specialist and a researcher at the University of Rochester, and I know he's been involved with you in some other efforts too. And so maybe let's move to PD Avengers. Tell us what that's about.
Well, so that also was inspired by Ray and Michael Oken and Boz Bloom and Todd Scherer, who wrote the book Ending Parkinson's Disease.
Yeah.
When that came out last year, I got together a group of folks on Zoom, about 12 of us, and we started talking about the book, and did we agree with the book, and it's kind of like a book club, but and these were people all over the world. Most of them had Parkinson's, or were partners, or were leaders of organizations, and we probably met for 5 weeks in a row talking about the book and what we agreed with, what we didn't agree with. We had we talked to all four of the authors, in our little group sessions, and they were very generous with their time. And then we realized at one point, and it was probably when Boz was there because he's really passionate about it. He goes, "We need action. This is a prescription for action. You're just talking about it."
Yeah.
And so we're like, "Oh yeah, probably we ought to do something." And the first time we had met, somebody joked that it felt like a convention of superheroes because everybody was blind copied on the invite. So nobody knew who was going to be there. And so they're showing up, looking around, going, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah.
And sort of seeing your Twitter feed come to life in front of you. So somebody said, "Yeah, we're like the Avengers." And somebody else said, "No, we're like the PD Avengers." And that was like the first meeting. And so that's what we kind of called it in our outlook, not ever thinking that it would be an organization. And then when we realized we wanted to really become an advocacy coalition, we couldn't think of a better name or a more unique name or something that would stand out and really be memorable amongst all these other organizations. And we didn't want it to feel like corporate. Because it's a patient-led organization. So the PD Avengers, we really worked hard on really trying to hone what we were going to do and what we weren't going to do. We're not a fundraising organization. There's a bunch of those. Right. So we'll never ask for our members to fundraise. It's free to sign up. It's for everybody. It's not just for people with Parkinson's and partners, but it's for doctors, neurologists, pharmacists, researchers. We need everybody, family members. We have what is it? The raccoon from the World Parkinson Congress. It's a member of the PD Avengers. Anybody who does advocacy work can be a part of there, whether it's big or small, because with numbers we have power. We have a bigger voice. And in addition to like individual people signing up and saying, "Yeah, I stand behind your pillars of wellness and advocacy and research," we also have engaged NGOs and organizations that are focused on Parkinson's, making life better for people with Parkinson's, or organizations that do research around Parkinson's, organizations that do wellness around Parkinson's. Everybody from the Michael J. Fox Foundation and the Finney Foundation, and to the Parkinson's UK and the Cure Parkinson's Trust. We just today, we now have the Parkinson's Disease Association of Slovenia. So we have over 50 organizations worldwide, and we have 3,000 members from over 62 countries.
Just, really amazing. And sort of, it's still its inception. It's not very old. And I think, again, another tribute to your ability to connect people. When I think of you, I think of someone who's a connector. And
that's my superpower. That's what I bring to the table.
Yeah. And I think to Ray's point and Boss's, sort of charge, I think that's really what's needed more and more is connection. Can you talk briefly about the current sort of campaign with, contacting Congress people and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we have a couple campaigns going on. There's the Red Letter campaign that goes to the end of the month in the US. The Red Letter campaign is designed to bring attention to the needs of people with Parkinson's to the White House. So we are sending actual red letters, envelopes, to the White House post office. So we've now sent 25,000. So they're stacking up. At some point, hopefully President Biden will walk by and go, "What the hell is that?" And read it. We are asking for three things. We are asking for the Medicare exceptions and for telemedicine during COVID to become permanent. So there's permanent coverage of telemedicine. We're asking for the paraquat and the trichloroethylene and other chemicals that are linked to the increased onset of Parkinson's to be banned. And we are asking the government to increase their research dollars by tenfold in the coming budgets. Right now, they're spending about $240 million a year on Parkinson's research at the federal level, and in the US. And in the US, the annual financial burden for treating people with Parkinson's is $56 billion.
Yeah.
So if you go to endingpd.org endingpd.org. You can order these red envelopes. We'd like to get 100,000 by the end of the month. The other campaign we have going on right now is I've sent a letter to the United Nations, to the Secretary General and to the President of the General Assembly, and we've encouraged others to send to their ambassadors. The United Nations currently does not observe a World Parkinson's Day or a World Parkinson's Awareness Week. Although the WHO, which is associated with the UN, has determined that Parkinson's disease is a priority, one of the top 5 priority in the world, and there's not even a dedicated page on their websites for it. Yeah. So I've sent this very kind letter asking them to observe World Parkinson's Day and World Parkinson's Week, and then we're getting that reinforced from the UK, one from the Canary Islands, one from Kenya, one from, like, they're coming from all over the world to the ambassadors. And so we're really hoping that can get done. So you can look up your ambassador on Google or whatever and send it to their attention at the UN in New York. And hopefully you can even email them if you want. Their email addresses are usually very available. And if you need a copy of that letter, you can go to pdavengers.com and then /blog. And you'll be able to scroll down and see our letter, and you can use that as a template.
And I'll be sure to put those links, on the at the end of the interview and when we post it. So thank you for all of that. And again,
Allan, let me just tell you that the Red Letter campaign won't end there. It's just going to go to different countries.
That's
so
great.
In June, we're going to be focusing on the Red Letter campaign in Canada, and then we're working with other countries around the world. So when there is that need, we can activate that Red Letter campaign.
Well, again, just thank you, and wonderful to hear about this. And I hope everybody will get involved in the ways that they can. I think it's really, really important message, and your 3 things you're asking for seem, quite reasonable and timely. So, thank you for that. What gives you hope, Larry, as you live this life and, enjoy the moment and the present, but also as you look ahead?
I see, I talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of leaders of organizations. I talk to a lot of researchers. And I see Parkinson's becoming less of a till death do us part disease. And I think in the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to be able to have a biomarker that will allow us to identify people with Parkinson's before the onset of symptoms, and we will be able to stop it. And that's based on just a lot of conversations I've had. Nobody's promised me anything, but just from the conversations I have had, that seems like a reasonable time frame. Now that's, in 15 years, I'm not going to be great, but I'm not in it for me. And so what gives me hope is that there's so many people that are working on it right now around the world that have dedicated their lives to helping us, even though they have no connection to Parkinson's, and many of them have never met anybody with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And the other thing that gives me hope is when you see how COVID has rallied communities and nations and people across the world, and we're so connected as a global community. And so this is going to sound silly, but these 50 plus organizations that we've pulled together for PD Avengers, part of being a partner is they have all promised once a year, we will form a campaign that is globally relevant and then executed locally. So we are all preaching the same thing at the same time around the world.
Yeah.
No more silos for at least for one time a year. Now, to get all those people in the room at the same time, those executives together, so they can look at each other in the eye and go, yeah, I'm in. Like that is like, that tells me that we're at the precipice of something really great.
Yeah.
And then I have hope in people. People never cease to amaze me. That from my son and my wife to my family, to my friends, to total strangers who reach out and just say, thanks for what you do. There's so much to be grateful for in this world. And oftentimes we focus on the negative.
Yeah.
But the positives, the silver linings of Parkinson's is I get to meet great people like you.
Well, back at you. And again, just really appreciate all that you do and everything that you say, and the connections that you help me make and many others make along the way. So final question for us today. If you could go back and say one thing to your newly diagnosed self, knowing what you know now, what would that be?
So if you want to read a big long version of this, it's if you go to the Parkinson's Society of British Columbia website. I did this for this month. I actually wrote a letter to my newly diagnosed self. What I would say is enjoy the slowness, take in being at a new pace. Laugh a lot, be curious, ask questions, don't take things at face value, don't believe your life is over, because it's just beginning.
Yeah, well said, as usual. Well, Larry, thank you for your time. Wish we had longer, but we'll have you back
Great.
many times, I hope. And know that you're appreciated, and you make an impact on many people's lives, mine included, in ways that you probably never know. But keep doing this good work, my friend. And again, it's just an honor to know you, and appreciate your time.
Well, thanks. Thanks so much for all you do, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, pal. Take care.
See you.